This network is devoted to the study of the unknown. Whenever possible, we use sworn statements from eyewitnesses who have chosen to come forward on their own accord. We acknowledge their testimonies as scientific evidence.
There's a good chance we're dealing with an organic creature, or we're dealing with a supernatural entity.
Pterosaurs, according to evolution, have been extinct for 70 million years or so.
Our objective to research information that describes the truth about the entire cosmos.
And the name of the business is SJ Polygraph, which is directly behind me, where the examination will be taking place.
They know what meteors are, they know what planes are. And yet they say this thing looks like a pterosaur.
Ropens, pterosaurs, creatures of the unknown. What do they all have in common? What secrets can they share with us about the world we think we understand? To date, our network has documented more than 223 eyewitness accounts, and that number continues to grow. Each story adds more to a glimpse into a realm just beyond science, yet fully within the reach of creation. Tonight, we're taking you back to North Carolina, where just last year, eyewitness Derrick Yates shared a story that defied explanation. He described a black-winged reptile gliding low near the treetops. One more account adding to the growing list of Ropen sightings across America. But encounters like Derrick's aren't isolated, no. They connect with stories from people who've seen far more than most of us ever will. So join us, and perhaps you too will believe.
Guilford County stretches between the two cities of Greensboro and High Point, a crossroads of industry, old highways, and small communities that have endured since before the Revolution. It's a place where late evening light drifts across farmland, where red clay roads cut through forests centuries old, and where people still pause to watch the sky. From the Blue Ridge's shadow to the edge of the Piedmont, this county breathes with the rhythm of the Carolinas. Change and constancy, the modern and the mysterious sharing the same horizon. On some nights, that horizon seems to hold something else. Long before factories and interstates carved their lines across this land, the air here was quiet. A chorus of whip-poor wills, cicadas, and wind through the trees. At dusk, that sound can feel almost electric, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. Greensboro and High Point, the two largest cities, anchor this county. Modern skylines watching over miles of farmland, hardwood forests, and scattered reservoirs. But in between them lies something older. Undeveloped valleys, forgotten storm channels, and wooded stretches that never quite surrendered to time. For decades, Guilford has carried its share of strange reports. Unexplained lights skimming the tree line, shapes gliding against the faint glow of the Piedmont sky. Some call them birds, others misidentifications. And yet, each account echoes something deeper, like a whisper folded between the trees. People here tend not to make wild claims. They farm, they work, they raise families. But now and then, one of them sees something that won't fit inside the boundaries of reason. Late in the spring of 2024, the quiet normalcy of Guilford County cracked for one such family when a father and son witnessed something impossible near Plaza. Derrick Yates and his son were walking back towards their vehicle. They had no reason to look toward the trees that afternoon. Beyond the parked cars, a line of trees stood like silhouettes against the last light. And nestled in the upper limbs, something darker than shadow.
And we were walking, like I said, back to the car, and my son explained something to us, the effect like, "What is that?"
And I looked up, and what I saw when I looked up, there was a
matte black reptile.
And it flew, it was some flight, probably about 15 feet off the ground, and it flew straight around the side of the building. It was actually gliding. It was flying, it was gliding.
At first glance, it seemed like a large bird, perhaps 3, maybe 4 feet in height. But its outline was wrong. Too solid. The shoulders narrow, the wings folded tight against a body without feathers. Its surface reflected no light, only absorbed it. A matte, jet-black shape perched motionless. Wings unfurled, and with a single push, it launched from the branch. It glided effortlessly, not flapping, just riding invisible currents across the lot. They sized up its outline for mere seconds before it veered right, passing behind the building and out of sight. They followed the direction of flight along the edge of the store toward a darker corridor of pavement leading to the woods. There in the ground lay a large storm drain opened in the asphalt, barely 5 inches tall, but wide enough to vanish into. The air smelled damp, metallic. Beyond that, silence. Derrick lifted his phone, snapping photos. Branches, pipes, the edge of the roofline, anything that might prove what they saw. But the creature was gone. The drive home passed in fragments, the image replaying in their minds. That posture, that direct awareness. Later, when recounting the event, Derrick described it simply. Not a bird, not a bat, something prehistoric. Many dismiss them as cranes or owls. Others aren't so certain. To believers in modern-day pterosaur sightings, such as Garth Gessman, Jeff Corin, and Jacob S. Guerra, Guilford County is another coordinate, a small red pin on a map of the unexplained. Only 12 miles from the site of the first Yates encounter, another sighting emerged. A second brush with the unknown in the same stretch of Guilford County, North Carolina. It was midday when Derrick Yates and his wife turned off Highway 109 onto Scenic Way, a quiet 2-lane road flanked by open fields and scattered pine. The sun had dropped behind the horizon, leaving a dull orange glow that bled through thin clouds. Then, from the left-hand side of the sky, a black form crossed their line of sight.
So we were driving, and my wife looked out and she said, "Isn't that the same thing we saw, a couple months back?" And I looked out the driver's side window, and I don't know if it's the same exact animal, but it's definitely the same species. The wings were very solid. They were not translucent. It was non-membrane wings, looked real solid. And, it's just solid matte black.
Yeah.
Made no sound. It just flew straight. It glided over the car. And we both saw it. So, when you see something like that, your mind's thinking like, this is not something ordinary. It's not just a bird. It's not just anything you put in there, a goose or a heron or whatever. This is something out of the ordinary.
They both knew what they had seen. The same creature, the same outline. Only now, 12 miles from the first sight, it had returned, tracing its path through the heart of Guilford County's picturesque sky. Every case file begins the same way. Someone ordinary, an ordinary place, and then a moment that rewrites the border between myth and memory. On a calm spring evening in 2024, Derrick Yates witnessed something that defied every rule in nature's catalog. Whatever it was rose out of the shadows, and in a heartbeat, was gone. Perhaps that's all these stories ever are, brief collisions between what we believe and what still hides in trees and the skies above.
It isn't just a tagline. It's a perpetual call to action for the mission of a lifetime. For purpose-driven people who always demand more of themselves for the greater good. This isn't existential BS. It's an exponential MO. The more self-reliant we are, the more we can be relied upon. The more strength we build, the more we can protect those who can't. The more our selfless commitment, the more our integrity grows. The more we answer the call of service, the more we respect others who serve. The more we're ready, the more we can live a life bigger than ourselves. For mind and body, from head to toe, we are the purpose-driven brand who make purpose-built gear for those on the mission of a lifetime. This is why we will always be ready. Will you?
During World War II, hundreds of Navajo Marines developed and used a secret code based on their native language. It transmitted vital military communications. Their unbreakable code helped U.S. forces achieve victory in the Pacific, saving countless lives. Once classified, their contribution was later recognized as one of the most indigenous and heroic chapters in American history. The legacy of the Windtalkers continues today. A story of courage, cultural strength, and an enduring voice of the Navajo Nation. Enter Brian William Price, actor, Navy SEAL with a Windtalker Navajo man whose life bridges courage, service, and faith. He's a witness to things that challenge the limits of what we call reality. And tonight he shares that journey. We are honored to have him. Join us now for part one of this amazing testimony. This is Brian William Price on the Ropen Network. Joining me today is award-winning classical Shakespearean actor, stage director, award-winning classical trained vocalist and producer, U.S. Navy SEAL, 13 awards for combat valor and merit, acting coach, and Fulbright scholar. That's amazing. Native American, member of the Navajo Nation, Columbia University in New York City, Harvard, ladies and gentlemen, London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. I'm impressed. It's a huge bio. And just to say it again, producer, film producer probably. And actually, he's done some amazing work acting in a movie that maybe a lot of you are familiar with, and that's Transformers, from what I remember. I think it's The Last Night. This is Brian William Price on the Ropen Network. It's a pleasure to have you, Brian.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor.
Yeah,
I understand that you currently live, is it Arizona?
I currently live in Los Angeles, California, but I was raised on the Navajo Reservation in Arizona.
Okay. And okay, so how long have you lived in California now?
I moved to California about 6, 7 months ago.
Okay.
Before that, I was in London. I was doing Shakespeare in London and attending the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, where I received my Master of Fine Art degree in classical acting. Before that, it was New York and places like that. But I'm going to be transitioning my stage acting career to the film space, so I moved to LA.
Wonderful. Well, it would seem like Los Angeles, California is going to be the place to be if you want to pursue those acting skills, right? Probably nowhere else except maybe New York and Los Angeles. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places that are filming. I know they do a lot of things in Albuquerque, Oklahoma. There's a lot going on up in Montana if you're native. But like I said, also working as a producer, I'd like to kind of come down where all the big business is happening and kind of get myself into that mix and be a bigger asset here at the home base of film, more so than kind of branched out to one of the other locations.
I see. Wow. So I got to ask that question then. For all of us who start off as just young little lads dreaming of maybe doing acting or being a part of Hollywood, how did that happen for you? And what age?
Yeah. Well, on the reservation, we watch a lot of DVDs, play a lot of basketball. I grew up in Loop, Arizona. It's about 60 miles northeast of Flagstaff, Arizona. But I'm originally from Chinle, which is like the deep res. And so I was always watching movies growing up, playing outside, grew up herding sheep, went to the boarding school. We would drive into the city on the weekends and we'd save up money from our chores, or my parents would save up money from things that they were working on, and they'd take us all out to the movies. And we would go with the whole family, like 30, 40 Native Americans, cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody, grandparents, and we'd all go to the movies together. And so it was something that I grew up enjoying and really, liking just being a part of. And I was fortunate to get into the business as an adult and be an asset here and get to make that dream come true.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have dreams of maybe being able to be in a film or act, but you made yours happen. That's exciting. Very cool. A lot of people would wish for that, but that's nice. I mean, that's where it all begins. Just a fascination with filmmaking, or for me, it was actually prop making. I wanted to be a prop designer. Then I realized that I wanted to be an adventurer. So I'm doing that. I'm living my dream. And what do you know? Now I'm doing studio work and I'm making these shows for everybody to see and to showcase the world.
Yeah.
Now, for someone who has served, you're at first, I bet when you grew up on some of these stories, you've heard some of these accounts. So maybe it doesn't seem too far fetched to realize what's a part of our world, what's really out there. We don't have to get into that right now, but I just want to bring that up because I think maybe the rest of the audience will probably be thinking, okay, well, this is an actor. And if it was just acting, maybe they say, well, why should we take this seriously? Well, there's a reason why, okay? And that is where we have that you led a life of service and adventure. You're an award-winning actor and singer, a U.S. Navy SEAL, and a modern-day Windtalker. When you look back, how do these different identities fit together in your life story, Brian?
Yeah. I gotta say, I mean, grace of God, really. I grew up in the middle of the reservation, herding sheep at a boarding school, and now I'm on the silver screen, influencing people with positivity and hope for what's coming. So how does it all tie together? You have plans for life, and sometimes those don't always go the way you think they would. And so even though I always wanted to work in show business as a child, the way that I got here was, it's just been one miracle after another. I honestly don't know how I got here. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, following love and doing the right thing as best I could anywhere I went. And, I ended up here.
Not many people understand what it truly means to serve as a Navy SEAL. Can you share what the experiences that you were taught about discipline, brotherhood, and facing fear, Brian?
Yeah. So, being a Navy SEAL, you're special forces. So you get a lot of exciting training. You basically get all the support you need. I kind of translate it to being a professional football player. It's like if you sign up for the NFL and you're the quarterback, like you got a guy for that. You got a guy for this. Like you get taken care of quite a bit. And so they do that for us too as a SEAL. So since we're special forces in the Navy, like we need you to learn how to shoot better. So they'll hire like the world champion pistol shooter for the past decade who's won consistently. They'll hire him and he'll come out and teach us how to shoot. And then it's like, hey, we need you to learn how to swim. So they'll have Olympic medalists come in and teach us to swim, fix our form so it could be quicker and faster in the water. Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm feeling a little sluggish. I was doing a ruck hump during land warfare, and my stamina hit the wall, and I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. So then you can go in and get a full blood work, everything done, personal trainers, everything, and they can kind of tip top shape you back into like the elite status that you're trying to uphold as a SEAL. So it was a really great experience. With discipline, a lot of people think that like discipline equals freedom, if that makes sense. Yeah. There's a guy named Jocko. I'm sure you've probably heard of him. That's one of his sayings. And it's just like, if you can kind of get your schedule locked down and be committed to that, then that becomes habits. And then it just becomes easier and easier. So like discipline.
Yeah. Facing fear is very important, I think.
Yeah. Facing fear. Well, they train you in the worst case scenario environments when you're going through SEAL training. So every single training environment is designed to be a worst case scenario. So by the time you actually get to combat, it's usually not worst case scenario. You're doing your job. You have the entire full support of the U.S. military and partner forces, all the fanciest equipment that no one knows about, all the fanciest everything. So you're put out there in a situation where you have everything going for you. And most of the time, SEALs, like we fight on our own terms, versus like if you're a Marine Corps infantry or Army infantry, you're kind of just like out there for an extended period of time at a fob somewhere, trying to push the line forward, and you don't always have control over when you get attacked. But being a special forces, being a SEAL, you're set up for success in your own backyard, basically, even if you're in another part of the world. So the facing the fear part, they induce fear through training. So there's a lot of, like, I've drowned twice in training. Like someone's biggest fear is drowning. I was like, well, I've drowned twice voluntarily because I'm not going to give up. But you learn how to kind of compartmentalize that fear, and then the training kicks in and you're able to react. Yeah. So it's just like, combat is scary. I did 140 missions in the war. So, it was like, oh, you're so brave. It's like, that just means I was scared and I did it anyway. But how are you able to do that? So because you're able to compartmentalize that fear and sit that back and then analyze the situation and move forward with the tactics, how do you need to do it. The training is, it's 3.5 years before I did my very first mission. Wow. Yeah, and it's like 20 hours a day, 3.5 years, Navy SEAL training, BUDS, SQT, workup, everything. Amazing. So when you get there, you're ready. Yeah. I have to say, okay, how did you get involved then? Did they come to your school? Did you just sign up? Did you just took an interest in the Navy? Amongst the other branches, you chose Navy. Mm-hmm. So I chose Navy. So I remember 9/11 happened when I was in 8th grade. I was about to get into high school. And so when I graduated high school, I went to college for about a year. So now it's about 2006, 2007. And I'm in college. And I went to a baseball game in Missouri. Okay. And I saw a Marine who had just gotten back from Iraq, but he had no arms above the elbows on both sides. And they were honoring him at the baseball game. And you could tell when he was walking around with his girlfriend, or whoever, I'm assuming it was his girlfriend, like other people wouldn't look at him because it was like visceral. But I couldn't take my eyes off him. And I was like, how can I sit here and pretend like I don't see this guy? Like it's 2007, the whole country's trying to figure out this war situation, and I'm sitting here going to school for gen eds, maybe trying to act, maybe trying to, I don't know what I wanted to do. It's, acting as a pipe dream, reservation herding sheep boarding school. It's like, how am I going to be on the silver screen? So first year of college, I'm just kind of doing gen eds and doing whatever. And I couldn't take my eyes off this guy, and I felt like a fraud sitting there. And I said, how can I look at this person? And I'm able-bodied. I'm running cross country and track in college. I'm a college athlete. And I was like, hey, I have to join the military and help. Like, this is wartime. And I'm sitting here, and this guy's giving his arms for me. You know what I mean? So I can sit here and eat this hot dog and then pretend like I don't see him. I was like, no, that's wrong. You can't do that. And so I decided to join, and I went to the Marines. I knocked on the door. They didn't even look at me. They're on the computer. And I was like, hey, I'd like to join the Marines. And they were like, and
really?
So I stood there for about literally. And I stood there for maybe a minute and a half. I was like, okay. And so I just walked out. And then there was an Army recruiter in my town, and they were like, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about joining the military. And I was like, I want to do some special forces and things like that. And they're like, okay, well, we can send you to Ranger School right away. Or you could wait to go to special forces, but you'll be infantry first. And then when you get into your infantry platoon, you can ask for leadership and they can send you the Green Beret selection. And I was like, you sure? But my grandfather he drove the landing boats at D-Day in the Navy. And so when he was, when my father was younger, back in the 70s and 80s, Jesse Ventura would wrestle. And so my grandpa would be like, hey, like Jesse Ventura was a Navy SEAL. Brian, Navy SEALs are the best. I was in the Navy. Those guys are the best. And so my dad's like, hey, maybe you should look into the Navy SEALs. And so I went to the Navy SEALs at the Navy recruiter, and they were like, hey, yeah, sure, we're at wartime. You can take this test. And so I took this physical test. And since I was doing college athletics, I broke like all the state records. And they're like, whoa, this kid's got a big shot. Okay. I'm like, well, let's see if he's got the scores. And so I took the test. And since I took the test, and I was going for college in like a year, I got like a really high score on the military entrance exam. And so I was able to, they're like, you could do any job you want. You should be an engineer. And I was like, no. I want to be a SEAL. And so they gave me the contract and I became a SEAL.
Since we've already touched a little bit on your military background, now comes something that's very interesting. A lot of people may ask this over the years because they heard it here and there. And what exactly is entailed? What do you do? Tell us about your service as a Windtalker. What was the role like? How did those responsibilities connect with your heritage and your language?
Yeah, thank you. So, Windtalker, another word for code talker, and I am Navajo. My great-grandfather, Carl Gorman, he was a code talker in the Pacific against the Japanese during World War II. And so that basically means you're the radio man, you call in all the airstrikes, you call in all the artillery, and you work with all the radios. And since in World War II, the Japanese kept breaking every code, and the Navajo language is extremely complex, we were able to kind of mask the code using our native language. So it's really cool that I got to be a modern day comms guy and JTAC who calls in all the airstrikes, artillery on the radio, just like my grandfather. So it was like I was kind of standing on the shoulders of my giant grandfather.
Yeah.
But it was really nice. And it was what it entails basically, you deal with all the electronics, all the technology. I'm like, got my goggles on and I'm in the, I'm soldering communications equipment together. I'm out in the fields like, hey, this communications piece of equipment failed, or it's reacting negatively and poorly to this. So I'm writing emails and after action reports to Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. And I'm working with their development team. I'm like, hey, this happened in combat. Like, we need to fix this. And like, I broke it open and I'm doing the soldering, and like some of the chips here overfried because of the heat from this and that. So there was a lot of collaboration with a lot of big organizations and engineering companies from the communications side. So I understood like the technology of the communications, but then I was also able to help them develop future applications for soldiers and people in combat, or just generalized telecommunication equipments. I did all that for the team, and then as a JTAC, my job was to call in all the airstrikes, all the artillery. So like I said, did 140 combat ops. I'm laying there in a ditch, explosions going off near me, bullets whizzing by my ear, bullets hitting the dirt next to me, splashing dirt in my eye. I'm trying to like get dirt out of my eye while I'm like trying to shoot back at the enemy, completely surrounded in the Himalayas somewhere in eastern Afghanistan. And I'm calling in on the radio. I'm like, I unroll this thing, I'm laying down, And I'm like, I got the satellite here, and I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, we need a danger close here. And I pull up my map, and I'm like, I got my crayon, and I'm drawing on this thing, and I'm trying to like get smaller because the bullets are coming by, and they were calling in airstrikes and bombs and stuff. So that's what the job of a modern day Windtalker is. You're a comms guy, you're a JTAC, you work with all the communications and ensure that the team is safe, that everyone gets in and out safely. You work with all the pilots, and then you work with civilian paramilitary contractor organizations, CIA, blah, blah, blah. It was a lot of fun. But like I said, never be as cool as my grandpa in World War II. So
Yeah.
he's the best. He's cool.
I've got to ask this question. I'm just going to throw this in here because anytime I hear that someone has seen combat, how do you transition from that to the everyday life? Someone who may work 8 to 5. We're used to the world around us of just getting up in the mornings and taking care of our families and getting ready for work. How does that transition for you? I mean, it seems like you've handled things very well, but of course, I don't know you real closely. I don't see you every day.
10 years ago, I was having, when I first got out of the military, I was having a really rough time.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a decade to get this chilled out. Thank God. How was the transition? It was difficult because they keep you in a constant fight or flight state from the second you enter boot camp, basically. Because when you're in boot camp, you still go through the same Navy boot camp as every other sailor, but you get put in a Special Forces division. So you're doing a lot of extra activity, and you're getting a lot less sleep. And they kind of poke you and they find out your like mental weaknesses, your emotional weaknesses, and they kind of like play on those. They kind of get you riled up, and they just keep you in a constant state of fight or flight. So your nervous system is jacked for the entire time you're in the military. If you're working in the type of environment that I was in, at the teams that I was in, so to come back out of that and being in the civilian world where it's not life or death, you drive into work, you have, like I do now, drive into work and, work on some production stuff or pre-production stuff I got coming up, or, maybe work as, I also work as a counselor and things like that for Special Forces veterans and other things. So to get from the point where it's like your body is in a constant fight or flight, and then you're compartmentalizing all that fear and all that stress and everything else, because the training does that. Yeah. You get out of the military and there's no purpose, there's no reason to be in the fight or flight. So now that your body can actually slow down, and it takes a long time, all of that compartmentalized fear and all that compartmentalized, death and wild situations that you see in a war and those types of places where I'd been, it hits you like a ton of bricks. And so it was really difficult. It took me about 10 years just to chill out and get back to a baseline of like, hey, this is what normal life feels like, and it's okay. You can slow down. No one's going to die. Yeah. I remember when I was in school in New York at Columbia for acting, my undergrad, a taxi cab backfired. And I was there with my girlfriend, and I dropped to the ground like you're supposed to do when a bomb goes off, so you can get cover and assess the situation. I pulled her with me in the middle of the sidewalk. And so it was a difficult transition to get to where I'm at now. But yeah, we got there.
I had wondered because, you hear what people go through when they serve, especially those who have seen combat. So you're bound to have all these questions. So, this is another question I want to throw out there because my ex-wife worked for the PVA, Oregon Paralyzed Veterans of America. And they've done great work helping people get established and having the benefits they deserve. Do you think that our benefits for the veterans is good enough, or do we need to see better?
I think I worked at the Veterans Affairs Office for about 6 months in a program called Compensated Work Therapy. So I kind of got to see behind the scenes and what they got to put up with. People try their best, but the system isn't designed to help a veteran. The system is designed to... the VA is an insurance company. Okay. And so it's just, and basically it's like if you were to get hurt in a civilian job, you would get workers' comp if you were injured for life. Right. So a lot of veterans come back and are injured for life. And so instead of looking at this from like a workers' comp perspective and a disability rating or some sort of retirement pay to make up for their injuries that they sustained from the war, you have to fight the VA like an insurance company to just get care that you signed and are grandfathered into through your contract. And so, like I said, I'm not sure that it's really any one individual person's fault. I
Right.
think the overall system could do better, but they're doing the best they can. And there's a lot of veterans, and there's not a lot of VA hospitals. I mean, you think about it. There's a VA hospital in every major city, but there's like 50,000 veterans, 50 million veterans.
Yeah.
All the way from Vietnam all the way up till now. It's like, and there's 300 offices. It's a lot of, so
It is. Okay.
they could do better, but they're doing their best.
I often wonder what we can do to make things better, but it's collaboration, a lot of brainstorming. There's got to be something.
Yeah.
But I think about that a lot, how we can better equip them, especially if they're transitioning from war to civilian life.
Mhm.
But I think that should be for another show, really, because there's a lot you could easily cover on that one.
I think that's the show in itself.
Yeah, it is. Were there any moments during your time in military when your spiritual awareness guided you through danger and uncertainty?
Yes, absolutely. I tell this story a lot. So we were infiltrating into a village somewhere in Afghanistan, far east Afghanistan, near the Himalayas. It was the middle of the night. There was an HVT, a high value target there. And we were going in with LTATVs, which is like kind of like up armored golf carts, if you will. Kind of like those like gators. You ever see like those like people like a farm that have like those gators, like a truck with like a thing in the back, like a bed in the back, but it's like a go-kart basically. Yeah, but they're a little more off-road and up armored. And so a lot of SEALs are like speed over security. Like our plates go from, about right here. This is all we get.
Okay.
Is this coverage
Just
versus
that.
like a Marine will have a neck pad, a full pad around them, shoulder pads, a groin pad, knee pads. It's like, no, we're just going to do this because we're fast. And so speed over security, LTATVs, there's no protection, but they're super fast. And so we're driving up on this high value target in the middle of the night, and I hear a voice in my head, and I know whose voice it is. It's God's. And he says, "Stop." And I immediately say, "Stop, stop, stop, Bobby." And Bobby was my ground force commander's first name. His name's Robert. But I'd be like, "Stop, sir." It's like, in the SEALs, you're good enough buddies to where you can be first name. But if you're by the flagpole, then yes, sir, Mr. Ramirez. But, out in the field with the boys, and, "Yo, Bobby, what's up?" So I'm like, "Bobby, stop," because he's driving and I'm on the radio. And I'm getting a download. They're saying, "Hey, there might be IEDs in the area. Just be careful." And I get a download from the God that says, "Stop." And I'm literally, "Stop." And he stops. And he's like, "What?" And I was like, there's an ID over here. Like, we can't back up and get off the road, and we'll go this way." And then the very next day, because the village is cleared and everything else like that, the mission was successful. The Army EOD guys went out there and cleared all the IEDs in the area so that the villagers could be safe and wouldn't step on them. And they found like a 2,000-pound IED, like 3 feet in front of where I told Bobby to stop at.
Mm-hmm.
And if we would have hit that, it would have killed both of us. It would have killed the people behind us. It would have fragged the people behind them. I mean, it would have been a disaster. But I literally heard God tell me in my heart and in my mind, and like the voice said, "Stop." And I immediately said, "Stop." And it saved our lives.
Wow.
So it was really, God's done a lot of those things for me.
Good. You've appeared in Hollywood productions and have lived that creative side of life. Could you share what drew you to acting and storytelling, just briefly?
Yeah, briefly. So like I said earlier in the podcast, the Navajo language is written down now, currently. But for centuries, it wasn't written down. It was a passed down oral tradition. So being a storyteller was how the knowledge, the wisdom, the history, everything in our culture was passed down to the next generation. So it was a very revered position. It was really a good thing. And like I said, I grew up watching movies with my family. We all go, telling me 30, 40, Navajos all driving in from the reservation to go to Flagstaff and go to the theater there and watch movies. And so I was always interested in movies, entertainment, storytelling, is an important position in the tribe.
Yeah.
And so it was something I always wanted to do. And fortunately and luckily, I was able to get into the business and be an asset there. And people don't realize this, but this is the truth. And this is the fact. Like show business, you're in the service industry. someone's paying to be entertained, and your job is to entertain them. And I think a lot of people sometimes get that backwards, but at utmost, show business, you're in the service industry.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to work in service, and I have been working in service my whole life. And it's just really fortunate that I get to do it on film and on stage, and
Yeah.
it's been good.
Then here comes a very important question I ask of anyone who is a fellow believer. When it comes to working in Hollywood, we all want to be there at some point in our life, folks. We always want to be on screen or be a part of something that's bigger than us. But as a believer, is that difficult, Brian, taking on certain projects? What if, like, say somebody offered you a part in the movie Legend? Have you ever seen that? Do you have to pay attention to things that go against your beliefs? Do you say yes to projects, say no to the others? How does that work out for you as a man of faith?
Yeah. So I am picky with my projects. Some people don't like that, but that's okay.
You have to be.
Yeah, I try to lean towards projects that are uplifting and hopeful, and stand for honor, courage, commitment. Stand for things that are good. I think a lot of the reason why society or the world gets messed up is because they get told that certain things are okay, or they try to blur the lines between like what is right and what is wrong. And there is a very large vat to pull from when you talk about those kind of things. But as a believer, I want to lean into projects that uplift people and build people up. Satan is the author of confusion. I don't want to confuse anybody. I want to entertain them, and you can do that with truth. You don't have to lie to people. And I think that's something that there's people, at least here in America, are like sorely looking for, is authentic storytelling. There's so much money and politics and agendas mixed up in the current system that it's almost become unenjoyable to watch. And I work in the business, and this is not just me saying this. This is everyone is saying this, but only a certain few people have the platform to really open up and discuss it. So again, sort of like the VA, there's a system we have to work within, but you can change that system by showing up and standing for what you believe in every day. And I have turned down a lot of projects.
I was wondering.
And that's caused a lot of grief, but Jesus Christ is the sovereign God, and he keeps the ledger, and that'll work out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. Thanks, sir.
As a Navajo man, your faith journey is quite unique. Can you tell us a little about the difference there? Because you are Navajo, but then your faith comes into play too. Just briefly touch on that for me as a Christian man.
So, thank you. So there has been people in my family on the native side. So my great-great-grandmother, she met the Lord through a missionary back in the early 1900s. And so she tried to have the entire family underneath her, because we're run matriarchally. So she's like, the highest position. And so she tried to pass Christianity down, but then there's other family members in my family that were like, I don't believe in that because I'm going to go traditional. So my whole native family is a mix of, witch doctors, black magic, medicine men type things. And then there's also people that are Christians. And so I kind of always knew about both sides. And it's like, well, if you knew about both sides, then why did you summon a demon one day? And I was like, well, I'd gotten back from the war, and I was super bitter and angry about the war, and I had PTSD, and I was just super pissed off about the whole situation. And it ended up, I was blaming God for the situation. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to go ask him for help. This guy sucks. I asked him for help in the war, and everyone's dead. So, like, dude, you're not my friend. You're not even real. You know what I mean? If you were, then you would help. Look what's happening. You're just sitting up there watching us. And, like, while everyone's dying, like, you're not real at all. But I know these are real, and I'm depressed because of the war. So I'm going to go ask one for a favor. And we summoned it, and then everything got really, really, really bad. The hauntings got really bad. Like, bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, these are bad enough to where, like, these things are going to literally drag my soul into hell. And hell is a real place.
Yeah.
And I called upon God, and Jesus showed up, and he broke all the ties, cut everything out, and I was like, wow, these like big, strong, powerful deities that all the Native Americans serve are terrified of this Jesus guy.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they terrified? Like, the thing is, they start screaming, screeching, and they like run as soon as he comes in, or as soon as you call him. And I can see them do that because I'm a seer, and I'm like, these are Native American deities. Why are they scared of Jesus? Oh, because they're working for the same guy.
Yeah.
So, like I said, even though it's different cultures and different understandings, it's all the same thing. They all work for the same darkness, and there's one true God that everyone's afraid of. Like the Native American stuff, they're not afraid of Buddha. It's like, dude, Buddha works for us. You know what I mean? But they're scared of Jesus.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
One
really
true name.
interesting stuff. What a good world,
Yeah. I always found that interesting, how the world hates Christianity more than anything else. And that's because I think that comes with conviction and so much truth that it's something that just wants to be shunned. And when we touched about the Freemasons and who they really serve, it is a sad thing to think about that Christianity is so dismissed and pushed out of the way because the bottom line is it's truth.
It's
the
true.
other ones serve.
But then they lied about it.
Yeah.
Like people, there's so much. I mean, they attack the church the most often. With it's everywhere. And you're told the false history. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, the white Christians came over and killed all the Native Americans and then enslaved all the black people. I'm like, bro, all three of those races were already here. First of all, there was no class system in the kingdom of heaven. And second of all three of those races were already over here. So it wasn't like some evil Christian white man came over and destroyed this place. They were already here. But they got a hold of all the history and they lied to everybody for hundreds of years. And so no one has any idea. Again, I'm not saying anything here that's out of the norm. You can look this up on Instagram. You can look this up on YouTube. It just takes some kind of recognition and cross-referencing and you can find the truth.
And whether or not you're going to accept it too. So I'm sure you get a lot of backlash.
It's hard to accept because you can't see it.
Yeah.
But it's like if you can see it, but you have to be able to allow that to come into you. It's just like a lot of people like, oh, I'm trying to find God. And it's like you're doing everything to prove that he isn't existing. You're not looking for the things that make him possible to exist. You're looking at the fact that there's no way there could be a ghost, the Holy Ghost, because you've never seen a ghost. And you see it on TV and it's like a fantasy. And you read it in a book and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I'm like, dude, all this stuff is down here. I mean, we're on the Ropen Network. You guys know. I mean, these things are real.
Fair share of it, that's for sure. I want to take this time now to thank Brian William Price for his service to his country. His discipline and faith make him more than just a guest, and a true credit to his country and his tribal nation. Because Brian isn't only a Navajo man, he is a Christian believer who understands truth. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, seek the truth.